The void of space was silent. Broken ships floated like ghosts in the darkness, their metal bodies torn apart by past battles. Among the wreckage drifted a small escape pod, weak lights blinking in the endless night. Inside it, a boy no older than 12 sat alone. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with something strange, something fierce. The pod shook as a shadow passed over it. A massive pirate cruiser slid into view, its hull covered with scars and old symbols of conquest. The ship was feared across the outer systems, for it belonged to Captain Dravak the Cruel, a name that made even armed soldiers tremble. The pirates noticed the tiny pod. To them, it was nothing more than space debris. But when their scanners showed a human child inside, laughter filled the ship. "Bring him aboard," one pirate said with a cruel grin. "Maybe the captain will want a new toy." A grappling beam dragged the pod toward the cruiser. With a loud metallic crash, it was pulled into the docking bay. The doors opened and smoke hissed as the pod was cut apart. The boy stepped out slowly, blinking against the harsh lights. The pirates crowded around him, armored and armed, their sharp teeth glinting. They expected tears. They expected begging. They expected fear. But the boy only stood still, his small fists clenched, his eyes sharp like a blade. Captain Dravak appeared, tall and terrifying. His skin was marked with scars, his eyes cold like stone. He looked down at the boy and a low growl rumbled from his chest. "Well," the captain said, his voice like iron. "What do we have here? A lost little human? You should be shaking. You should be on your knees," but the boy didn't move. He didn't speak. He only stared back, his gaze steady and unbroken. The crew burst into laughter. "Look at him!" one pirate roared. "The child is frozen with fear." But Dravak saw something else. The boy's hands were not trembling. His jaw was tight, his eyes unblinking. This was not fear. This was defiance. The captain bent low, bringing his scarred face close to the child. "Do you know who I am, boy?" The boy's voice was quiet but steady. "You're just another pirate." Gasps echoed through the bay. No one had ever dared speak to Captain Dravak like that, not even his own crew. The captain's eyes narrowed. For a moment, silence filled the air. Then slowly he began to laugh, a deep rumbling laugh that unsettled even his men. "You have courage," Dravak said. "Or perhaps you are simply foolish. Do you think words will save you?" The boy's lips curved into a small, defiant smile. "I don't need saving," the pirates hissed in disbelief. Some drew their blades, eager to strike the boy down for his insolence. But Dravak raised his hand, stopping them. His curiosity had been sparked. "Tell me, human child," the captain said. "Where are your people? Where is your family?" The boy's face darkened, but his voice did not waver. "Gone, destroyed by raiders. Maybe raiders like you?" The crew sneered, some amused, some impatient. But Dravak studied the boy closely. There was no trembling, no weakness, only raw, burning anger. "You should fear death," the captain said. "I don't fear you," the boy answered firmly. Dravak tilted his head. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him. Interest. He had broken warriors, captured soldiers, crushed rebels. All of them had begged for mercy in the end. But this boy, small and fragile, stood against him without hesitation. The crew muttered among themselves. "Kill him, Captain. He's nothing but a child. Sell him to the slavers. He'll fetch a good price. Or feed him to the beasts." But Dravak ignored them. His eyes remained locked on the boy. "Tell me your name," Dravak commanded. The boy's voice was steady. "My name doesn't matter. What matters is I will never bow to you." A hush fell across the bay. Even the cruelest pirates were unsettled by the boy's words. His voice was not loud, but it carried a weight, like iron pressing against their chests. Dravak's grin widened. "Interesting. Very interesting." The captain turned and barked an order. "Take him to the holding chamber. Do not harm him. I want to see how long this fire burns." The pirates hesitated. "Captain." "He's just a child," Dravak's voice cut like a blade. "Do as I command." The boy was dragged away, but his eyes never left the captain's. He walked with his head high, not once lowering his gaze. And in that moment, Dravak the Cruel felt something he had not felt in decades. Not fear, not anger, but respect. For the first time, the dangerous pirate wondered, could this human child be more than he appeared? The silence of space hung heavy outside the ship, as if the stars themselves waited to see what would happen next. The holding chamber of the pirate ship was dark and cold. The walls were covered with scratches left by prisoners long forgotten. The boy sat on the floor, his back straight, his eyes fixed on the steel door. Chains clinked around him, but he showed no fear. Outside the door, the pirates whispered. They could not understand why their captain had spared the child. To them, the boy was worthless. But to Captain Dravak, he was a puzzle worth solving. The captain finally entered, his heavy boots echoing against the metal floor. The crew followed behind, eager to see what their leader would do. Dravak studied the boy in silence for a moment, his eyes sharp as a blade. "You are brave," Dravak said at last. "But bravery without strength is nothing. Today we test you." The boy raised his head. "Test me?" he asked, his voice steady. The captain nodded. "Yes, I want to see if your spirit is only words, or if there is fire in your blood." He motioned to his men. The chains were released and 2 guards dragged the boy out of the chamber. The crew cheered as they marched him down the long corridor, toward the arena deep inside the ship. The arena was a wide, circular pit. Metal bars surrounded it, and the smell of old blood filled the air. The pirates gathered around, their voices loud with excitement. They loved nothing more than to watch suffering. Dravak stepped forward and announced, "This human claims he fears nothing. Let us see if he fears death." A gate opened with a grinding roar. From the shadows, a beast stepped into the arena. Its skin was dark and scaled, its jaws lined with rows of jagged teeth. Its eyes glowed red and its claws scraped the floor with sparks. It was a creature stolen from a war-torn planet, bred only for killing. The pirates cheered louder. "The boy will die in seconds!" they shouted, but the boy did not move back. His fists clenched, his heart pounded, yet his eyes stayed locked on the beast. The captain leaned forward, curious. Would the boy scream? Would he beg? The beast roared and charged. The ground shook under its weight. The boy leapt aside, barely escaping the strike of the claws. He grabbed a sharp piece of broken metal from the floor and faced the monster again. His hands were small, the weapon weak, but he stood firm. The pirates laughed at the sight, but Dravak's smile grew. The boy did not cower. He fought. The beast lunged again. The boy ducked, rolled, and stabbed the shard into the creature's side. It howled, thrashing in pain, but the wound was small. Blood sprayed across the floor, and the boy was thrown back. His chest burned, his arms shook, but he climbed to his feet. His face was pale, yet his eyes still burned with defiance. He charged again, shouting with all the fury inside him. The pirate's laughter began to fade. The boy was not giving up. Blow after blow, slash after slash, he kept attacking. His small body was cut and bruised, but he never stopped moving. Finally, as the beast opened its jaws for a killing bite, the boy drove the shard deep into its throat. The creature roared, staggered, and collapsed with a thunderous crash. Silence filled the arena. The boy stood over the dead beast, his body trembling from exhaustion, blood dripping from his arm. But he did not fall. He lifted his head and looked directly at Captain Dravak. The pirates stared in disbelief. A human child had survived the beast's fury. Not only survived, but defeated it. The captain rose slowly, his face unreadable. Then a deep laugh rumbled from his chest. "Impressive," Dravak said. "Very impressive." The boy said nothing. He simply dropped the shard and stood tall, refusing to show weakness. The crew began to murmur nervously. Some looked at the boy with awe. Others looked with jealousy and anger. Respect was dangerous among pirates. Respect could change power. Dravak raised his hand for silence. "This boy," he declared, "is no ordinary human. His spirit is sharper than any blade. He has earned the right to stand in my presence." The pirates growled in disagreement, but none dared to challenge their captain. The boy only stared back at Dravak, his voice calm but strong. "I told you. I don't bow." The captain's smile widened. His eyes shone with something rare, something close to admiration. The dangerous pirate was impressed. But deep inside, he also wondered, was keeping this boy alive a choice that might one day cost him everything? The arena lights dimmed, the whispers of the crew echoing like shadows. And in that moment, everyone on the ship understood. The human child was no prey. He was a storm waiting to rise. The arena was still stained with the blood of the beast. The pirates whispered among themselves, glancing at the boy with new eyes. Some were afraid. Some were angry. None understood why their captain had let the child live. Captain Dravak stood on the platform, silent, his sharp gaze fixed on the boy. The crew waited for his command, kill, enslave, or reward. But instead, the captain raised his hand. "Bring him to my chamber," Dravak ordered. The pirates muttered, confused. A child who should have been dead now walked under guard into the heart of the most feared ship in the sector. The captain's chamber was large, lined with trophies from countless raids, broken weapons, banners from conquered fleets, alien skulls mounted on the walls. It was a hall of fear, meant to remind anyone who entered that Dravak bowed to no one. The boy stood in the center, his cuts bandaged roughly by the guards. His clothes were torn, his face marked with dirt and blood. But his eyes, those eyes still held fire. Dravak leaned back in his iron chair, studying him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, the captain's voice broke the silence. "You should be dead," he said slowly. "That beast has devoured trained warriors, yet you stood against it." The boy met his gaze without blinking. "I told you, I don't bow." A low growl of amusement rumbled from the captain's chest. Words again. "But tell me, boy, why refuse fear? Why fight, when surrender would save your life?" The boy's voice was calm, steady. "Because if I kneel, then I'm already dead." The crew guarding the chamber shifted uneasily. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Even hardened pirates felt them echo inside. Dravak tilted his head, eyes narrowing. For years he had crushed soldiers, rebels, and mercenaries. All had broken. All had begged. Yet this child spoke with a strength he had not seen in men 3 times his size. The captain rose and stepped closer. He towered over the boy, his shadow covering him like a mountain. His scars were deep, his teeth sharp. But the boy did not move back. "What is your name?" Dravak demanded. The boy hesitated for a moment. Then he spoke. "Kieran." Dravak repeated it, testing the sound. "Kieran, a small name, yet heavy in your mouth." The boy said nothing more. He only watched the captain, waiting. Dravak turned, his cloak swirling behind him, and faced the wall of trophies. His voice dropped low, almost thoughtful. "I have fought across 100 systems. I have burned colonies to ash. I have watched soldiers, trained, armed, proud, fall to their knees when they saw me. Yet you are different. A child with nothing. And still you stand." Kieran's reply was soft but sharp as steel, because humans don't stop, even when the galaxy tells us to. The captain froze for a moment. His hand brushed the hilt of his blade as if remembering battles long past. In his heart something old stirred, something he had buried beneath years of cruelty. He turned back, his voice louder now. "Do you believe humans are stronger than pirates? Than killers?" Kieran's chin lifted. "I believe strength is not about fear. Strength is about refusing to give up. That's why you kept me alive. You saw it." The chamber grew still. The guards shifted, unsure if the boy's bold words would bring death, but Dravak laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, but something rough, almost surprised. "You are sharper than I thought, boy." "Yes, I did see it, and now I want to see more." The pirates exchanged nervous glances. Their captain never spoke like this. He never respected anyone. Dravak leaned closer, his scarred face inches away from Kieran's. "You interest me, human. I will not kill you, not yet. But understand this, respect on my ship is dangerous. It breeds envy. Already some here wish you dead." Kieran's voice did not shake. "Let them try." The guard stared in disbelief. The boy spoke as if he had already faced death and won. Dravak's grin widened. "Good, I like fire. Fire burns everything it touches. But fire also consumes itself. Let us see which one you are." He gestured to the guards. "Take him back to the chamber. Feed him, treat his wounds. I will decide his fate later." As Kieran was led away, his eyes never left Dravak's, and for the first time in years, the captain of the most feared pirates in the sector felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not hatred, but curiosity. That night the crew whispered in the corridors. Why had the captain spared the human again? Why did his voice carry respect when he spoke of the boy? Some muttered that the captain had grown weak. Others swore that the boy was dangerous, cursed, perhaps even destined. But one truth burned inside every pirate's mind. The human child had become something more than a prisoner. He had become a storm in the making, and storms always change the course of ships. The ship drifted in silence through the endless black of space. But inside, whispers spread like fire. Every pirate aboard had seen the boy defeat the beast. Every pirate had heard his bold words to Captain Dravak. And now, the crew's fear was mixing with something even more dangerous: jealousy. In the mess hall, groups of raiders muttered under their breath. He makes the captain laugh. He makes the captain curious. No child should stand where we kneel. Some slammed their fists on the tables, others sharpened their blades. The boy was becoming a threat, not because of his strength but because of the respect he was pulling from their leader. Meanwhile, in the captain's chamber, Dravak sat alone. He replayed the memory of Kieran's fight again and again. He remembered the way the boy bled but did not fall, the way his eyes burned with defiance like a soldier who refused surrender. For years, Dravak had surrounded himself with fear. It was the only language pirates understood. Yet the boy had spoken to him without fear. It made the captain wonder, was there something humans carried that even pirates could not crush? At last he rose and summoned his guards. "Bring the boy," he commanded. Kieran entered, bruised but standing tall. He did not bow, he did not lower his gaze. He looked at Dravak as if the two of them were equals. "You called me?" Kieran said simply. The crew nearby hissed at his tone. No one spoke to their captain like that. But Dravak did not strike him. Instead, he leaned forward with a strange gleam in his eyes. "I have watched you fight," Dravak said. "I have heard your words. Now I offer you a choice." Kieran tilted his head slightly. "A choice?" Dravak nodded. "You can remain here as a prisoner, and one day the crew will tear you apart. Or," he paused, his grin sharp, "you can prove yourself again. Not against a beast this time, but against men. My men." The pirates stirred in shock. The idea of a child fighting trained raiders was madness. But their captain's word was law. Kieran's voice was calm. "You want me to fight your crew?" "Yes," Dravak said. "A duel. If you lose, you die. If you win." His grin widened. "Then you earn a place aboard my ship." The boy's face was unreadable. His small fists clenched, but his voice stayed steady. "And if I refuse?" Dravak's answer was cold. "Then I kill you myself, slowly." The silence in the chamber was heavy. The crew waited, eager to see the boy break at last. But Kieran only gave a single nod. "Then I fight." The arena was prepared once more, but this time no beast waited inside. Instead, one of Dravak's lieutenants stepped forward. A massive alien warrior covered in tattoos, his arms as thick as steel pipes. The crew cheered, certain the boy would be crushed within moments. Kieran entered the pit with nothing but his bare hands. His wound still ached from the beast fight, but his eyes were sharp, unwavering. Dravak sat above, his gaze fixed, waiting. The signal was given. The lieutenant charged, swinging a heavy fist like a hammer. Kieran dodged, barely escaping the blow that cracked the floor. He moved fast, darting in and out, striking where he could. His small fists did little damage, but he did not stop. The pirates roared with laughter. "He's too small." "Break him!" The lieutenant caught Kieran by the arm and hurled him across the pit. Pain exploded in his ribs, but the boy pushed himself up again. He spat blood, raised his fists, and kept fighting. Again and again he was thrown down, but again and again he rose. His body screamed to stop, but his spirit would not bend. Every time he stood, the laughter of the crew grew quieter. Finally, with speed and fury, Kieran leapt and drove his elbow into the lieutenant's throat. The giant staggered, choking. The boy struck again, once, twice, 3 times, until the warrior collapsed to his knees. With one last desperate strike, Kieran brought the giant crashing to the floor. The arena fell silent. The boy stood over the fallen lieutenant, chest heaving, blood dripping from his lip. His legs shook, but his eyes blazed with victory. Dravak rose slowly, his face unreadable. Then in a voice that carried through the entire ship, he declared, "This boy is stronger than any of you. He has the heart of a warrior." The crew erupted in chaos. Some shouted in disbelief, others lowered their eyes in shame. But all of them knew one thing: the human child had earned Dravak's respect. Kieran wiped blood from his mouth and looked up at the captain. His voice was hoarse but unbroken. "I told you. I don't bow." Dravak's grin returned. This was no ordinary child. This was a fire that refused to die, and now that fire was his to command, or perhaps one day to fear. The duel was over, but the storm it created had only begun. Kieran stood in the center of the arena, his small chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. Around him, hundreds of pirates were silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. A boy, just a boy, had defeated one of Dravak's strongest lieutenants. The captain rose from his seat above, his voice thundering across the chamber. "This human child has done what none of you expected. He has faced death twice and refused to fall. From this moment, he stands as one of my crew." Gasps erupted from the pirates. Some cheered loudly, eager to follow their captain's command. Others looked down in shame. But many did not cheer at all. Their eyes burned with quiet hatred. Kieran was escorted out of the arena, his wounds treated by the medics. The boy sat quietly while his arm was stitched, his mind replaying the fight. His body ached, but inside a strange fire grew. He had not only survived, he had forced pirates to respect him. Yet he knew respect among killers was dangerous. Respect could make men envy, and envy often ended with blades in the dark. That night the mess hall was filled with voices. Tankards slammed, dice rolled, and laughter echoed. But beneath the noise, whispers spread like poison. He made the captain smile again today. The boy is dangerous. If Dravak keeps him, one day he'll rise above us. He's not one of us. He's a human, weak and soft. We can't let him stay. At one table, a scarred raider leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. We kill him, quietly. The captain doesn't need to know. Others nodded in agreement, their eyes flashing with greed and malice. Meanwhile, in his private chamber, Dravak poured himself a drink of bitter black liquid. He sat by the wide window, watching the stars blur past. For years he had led through fear, but fear had grown dull. His men obeyed because they trembled. They followed because they wanted plunder. There was no fire left in them. Then came the boy, small, fragile, yet filled with something the captain recognized, the will to fight no matter the odds. It reminded Dravak of his own youth, before he became a name whispered with terror. He chuckled to himself. A storm in a child's body, he muttered. A storm I cannot control. Not yet. The next day, Kieran was brought into the training hall. Instead of chains, he carried a small blade, his first weapon. The crew circled around, watching. Some sneered, others stayed silent. Dravak appeared, his heavy cloak sweeping the floor. Today, he announced, the boy trains. Not as a prisoner. As one of us. The hall filled with mixed reactions. Some roared in support, others spat in disgust. But none dared challenge the captain's word. Kieran stepped into the center, gripping the blade. He was smaller than everyone else, but his stance was steady. He listened, learned, and fought. Every strike was fueled by determination, not fear. Hours passed. The boy's body weakened, but his spirit only burned brighter. The crew had to admit he was not ordinary. He refused to quit. Later, as Kieran rested, a shadow approached him. A pirate with a crooked scar leaned close, his voice a whisper. You think you've earned respect? You think the captain's praise protects you? It doesn't. Watch your back, boy. The crew doesn't forgive weakness or outsiders. Kieran's reply was simple. Then I won't be weak. The pirate sneered and walked away, but the warning was real. Danger now followed the boy like a shadow. That night, Dravak called Kieran to his chamber again. The boy entered, standing tall despite exhaustion. You fought well today, Dravak said. But know this, the respect you earned comes with enemies. Some of my crew would see you dead before they bow their heads to a child. Kieran's answer was calm. Let them come. I will not bow to them either. Dravak studied him for a long moment. Then for the first time he did something no pirate had ever seen. He placed his massive hand on the boy's shoulder, not as a threat but as acknowledgement. You have the heart of a warrior, Dravak said. But hearts can be broken. Stay alive long enough and you may change more than this ship. You may change me. Outside the chamber, the crew watched with narrowed eyes. Respect was dangerous. Respect could topple thrones. The human boy had survived monsters and warriors. But now he faced the deadliest enemy of all, envy. The pirate ship cut through the darkness of space like a predator, its engines rumbling with power. Yet inside its steel halls, something far more dangerous was growing. Not weapons, not plunder, but an idea, and that idea was carried by a human boy. Kieran trained every day under the watch of Dravak. His arms were small, his body still healing from battles, but his spirit never bent. He practiced with blades, he practiced with fists, and when his body failed, his will carried him forward. The pirates watched in silence. Some laughed at his mistakes. Others clenched their jaws when he refused to stop. For every failure, Kieran rose again, and every time he rose, their captain's eyes gleamed with a strange pride. One evening after a long training session, Dravak called Kieran to his private chamber. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of starlight spilling through the wide window. The walls of trophies looked down on them, symbols of power won by blood. Dravak poured himself a drink and gestured for the boy to sit. Kieran obeyed, though not like a servant. He sat as an equal, his back straight, his eyes steady. The captain studied him for a long moment before speaking. "You should not have lived this long," Dravak said. "A child among wolves. Yet here you are. Do you know why?" Kieran shook his head. "Because I refused to fall?" Dravak's grin was sharp. "Exactly. Most think strength is muscle, or fear or power, but true strength," he tapped his chest, "is here, in the will, in the spirit. That is why you survive." The boy's voice was quiet but firm. "Humans fight like that, not because we are the strongest, but because we don't stop, even when we should." Dravak leaned back, his scarred face thoughtful. For the first time in years, he spoke not as a pirate king, but as a man remembering his past. "When I was young, before I wore these scars, I too fought with fire. I believed nothing could break me but time, greed, power. They made me forget. I became a beast that ruled through fear." His eyes shifted to Kieran. "Then you appeared. Small, fragile, yet unbroken. You remind me of who I once was." Kieran listened, his young face serious. "Then maybe you should remember again." The words struck like a blade. Dravak laughed, but it was not his cruel laugh. It was softer, almost pained. "You speak like a leader, boy. But be careful. Leaders make enemies faster than they make friends." Outside the chamber, the crew was restless. Whispers spread through the halls like smoke. The captain talks with him in private. The boy sits at his table. The captain listens to him. Jealousy grew sharper than any blade. Some feared Kieran. Others hated him, and a few began plotting in shadows. Later that night, as the stars stretched endless outside the ship, Kieran sat alone in the training hall, his blade resting on his knees. His body was tired, but his mind was sharp. He thought of his family, lost to raiders. He thought of the promise he carried, to never bow, never break. One of the younger pirates approached him, curious rather than cruel. "Why do you keep fighting?" the pirate asked. "You're only a boy. You could have begged for mercy. The captain might have spared you anyway." Kieran looked up, his eyes steady. "Because begging is death. You may live a little longer, but you're already broken inside. I fight because my spirit is all I have left. If I lose that, I'm nothing." The pirate said nothing more, but his face showed something strange, something close to respect. When Dravak entered the hall later, he found Kieran still awake, still training. The captain watched silently before stepping forward. "You are dangerous, boy," Dravak said. "Not because of your strength, but because of your spirit. It spreads. My crew begins to see it. Some admire it. Others fear it. That is power more dangerous than any weapon." Kieran's answer was simple. "Then maybe you should lead with that power instead of fear." Dravak froze. No one had ever dared to tell him how to lead, and yet the boy's words echoed inside him, louder than the engines of his ship. For the first time, Captain Dravak wondered if the human child was not just surviving. Perhaps Kieran was reshaping the very heart of the most feared pirate in the galaxy. But in the shadows of the ship, knives were being sharpened. Voices whispered of betrayal. The boy's spirit had awakened something dangerous, not only in Dravak but in the crew who now saw him as a threat. The respect he had earned was real, but respect in the world of pirates was the most dangerous enemy of all. The pirate ship hung in the void, silent as a grave, but inside its steel walls tension burned like fire. Respect for the human boy had grown, but so had hatred. Whispers of betrayal spread faster than smoke. Kieran knew it. He felt the eyes on him in every corridor. Some stared with awe, others with sharp envy. He had survived beasts, survived duels, and even earned Captain Dravak's respect. But in a ship full of killers, respect was the most dangerous weapon of all. One night, alarms ripped through the halls. Red lights flashed. The floor trembled. A rival pirate ship had appeared from the shadows, guns blazing. Metal screamed as explosions tore across the hull. The crew rushed to battle stations, shouting and cursing. Blades were drawn, cannons roared. For the first time in years, Dravak's empire faced a real threat. The rival captain's voice crackled through the comms. "Dravak, your time is over. Hand over the boy, or we burn you from the stars." The crew froze. The boy? How did the rivals know of him? Dravak's eyes narrowed. He understood at once. His own men had whispered. His own men had betrayed. Word of the humans' defiance had spread beyond his ship. carried like a spark into dry wood. Now, even enemies wanted the boy. Kieran stood on the command deck beside Dravak. The boy's hands trembled, not from fear but from fury. He turned to the captain. "They want me. Give me to them and you'll be safe." Dravak let out a dark laugh. "Safe? No, boy. They don't come for you alone. They come to end me. But they will learn that Dravak does not bow, and neither do you." The battle began. The rival ship smashed into their hull, and boarding hooks clamped tight. Steel doors blew apart, and raiders flooded in. The ship became a storm of blades and fire. Kieran fought at Dravak's side. His small frame moved fast, striking with a blade sharper than his years. He cut, dodged, struck again. Blood marked his face, but his eyes never wavered. Dravak roared like a beast, swinging his massive blade, carving through enemies. For the first time in decades, he felt the fire of battle burn fresh in his chest. And beside him, the boy was a spark that would not die. In the chaos, the rival captain appeared, a giant covered in armor, his voice like thunder. "Dravak, the galaxy is done fearing you. Tonight your name dies!" The two captains clashed, steel against steel, the deck shaking under their strikes. Kieran leapt into the fight, slashing at the rival's flank. The enemy laughed at the child, until Kieran's blade drew blood. "You dare!" the rival captain roared. Kieran's voice was sharp as iron. "I don't bow." The fight raged on. Dravak's strength met the rival's fury, but it was Kieran's spirit that tipped the scale. Every time the boy struck, every time he refused to fall, Dravak fought harder. For the first time, the cruel pirate fought not only for himself but for something greater. With a final roar, Dravak drove his blade through the rival's chest. The enemy captain staggered, fell, and silence swept the deck. The rivals fled, their ship breaking away into the void. The battle was over. The crew stood in shock. Their captain, feared for his cruelty, now stood side by side with a human child, both bloodied, both unbroken. Dravak turned slowly, his voice heavy but steady. "You all saw it. This boy fought with more courage than any of you. He stood when others would kneel. He is no prisoner. He is no toy. He is proof that spirit, not fear, rules the stars." The pirates lowered their heads, some in shame, some in respect. None dared challenge the captain's words. Kieran stood beside Dravak, his small body shaking with exhaustion, but his chin was high, his eyes burning bright. Dravak looked down at him. For years he had lived as a beast, feared but hollow. Now he felt something he had not in decades: pride. Slowly, the most feared pirate in the sector bent one knee. "Not in weakness, but in respect. To you, boy," Dravak said, his voice low, "because you remind me what strength truly is." The crew gasped. The galaxy had feared Dravak for his cruelty, but now it would fear something greater, the unbreakable spirit of a human child. And so, in the dark silence of space, a legend was born, not of treasure, not of blood, but of a boy who refused to bow, and a pirate who bowed to him instead.